Well, Campbell, dominant 3-day win in Bristol, a huge win in the county championship. What's your reflections on that result?
Yeah, like you say, a very complete performance. We got sent in to bat on a wicket that we were probably going to bowl on too. There was some moisture in it and good coverage. And Ben McKinney went about their work in that first session, really, um, you know, basically said to Gloucester, this ain't happening. And you're in trouble. And the way they played, I think we were none for 143 at lunch from day one, kind of sets the tone then. And the good thing for us, though, is I think we've been guilty in the past that, when we've been in a really strong position with the bat, we've probably let it slide a little bit and haven't quite been as ruthless as we have been, in the past. So yeah, it was really pleasing to see those two really put them to the sword, and all our batters got stuck in, and yeah, I just know that's how we bat, Sam. To be honest, when we get up and running, I think we went at nearly 5-0, but which is not something that we're setting out to do, but when our guys bat at their natural tempo, it's generally quite high, and that then installed plenty of time in the game for us because of the rate in which we scored. And when we can give our bowlers an opportunity, they made it look like we were bowling on a different wicket. That's for sure.
Yeah, you talk about being ruthless. I guess that huge score at the end of day one kind of set the game up perfectly, didn't it? Going back to kind of 2023 when we won Division Two, then were kind of the runs that we were scoring in a day.
Yeah, for sure. To have maximum batting points by the end of day one was, something very pleasing, obviously. And then, it was about how do we win this game of cricket? It's the only question I always ask our guys, and they probably get sick of me asking. But, um, you know, and the thought process was, probably we'll bat till lunch and that'll be about it. That's what we'll need. But even then, it was, the guys got together just before that and thought, we're going so fast. Can we have a crack at them before lunch even? And, also that would mean, they'd use the heavy roller before the lunch break. And hopefully that would wear off, obviously, during the lunch break. So, there was a lot of thought that went into it. And obviously, Pima struck in that first over on it with a ball that, poor old Cameron Bancroft probably stood at first slip for most of that first innings and thought this is the most placid, docile pitch ever. And he cops one that swung and seamed back in first up. And, again, that set the tone for our bowling performance.
Yeah, let's start with Ben McKinney. Obviously, first class best of 244 for him. To see him up close and kind of watch him, but as men's head coach, you must be delighted to see him put a performance in like that.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think we all know what capabilities Ben has, but he's still got to put it all together. And, he's getting to that point now where we don't want to just keep using the word potential. He has to actually put the scores on the board and become a dominant factor in our batting lineup. And, that's what he did. He was, he hits balls that, the mere mortals would probably defend, but he's able to just, hit it on the top of the bounce with his height and strength and stuff. And, again, people can say, oh, they didn't have a great attack or whatever, but mate, you still got to put it all together. And the fact that he batted for such a long period and faced so many balls for his 200, it's awfully pleasing. I know that he's put a lot of hard work in the off season, and those trips away with the Lions, and he's working himself, and Dale Benkenstein has been really, really pleasing to see. And yeah, he's taken another big step forward, and hopefully that gives him the confidence to understand what he can do at this level. And hopefully now he can back it up.
And Bedders and Lee easily 100 as well on the back of Emilio last week. I guess for you to see the top order firing this early in the season must be really pleasing.
Well, I almost forgot about the Bettingham 100. It was sort of, that much chaos going on with the batting. But, yeah, look, at the end of the day, we know as a group last year that we batted under pressure a lot of times and we didn't live up to expectations. And, when you've got a batting outfit that we do, that we feel is so strong, right down to, I think Kemo was at number 11 this game. We expect to make big scores, and we don't want to leave it to anyone else, and everyone has to be ruthless. And it was really pleasing to see, at the end of the day, we can talk about our batting all we want, but players will be judged on hundreds. That's what their performances are generally, as a batsman, that's what you're marked on. How many hundreds do you get? And, I think Alex Lees went past 12,000 first-class runs, and I think he's now the equal second most centuries for the club, which, again, is another reflection of how good a player he is and how he has been for the club and will continue to do so.
605 on the board. What were you kind of looking in on social media, and you'll have read it? People have said, "Oh, this is going to be another board draw." But the way our bowlers bowled compared to Gloucestershire bowlers, I guess was a credit above. Kind of what were your thoughts, Campbell, when we scored 600, and kind of you were thinking, "Oh, is this going to be a draw?" Or did you have confidence in our seam attack?
Yeah, the whole time that we were batting, it was so pleasing to hear the guys, talk amongst themselves. And, we really pride ourselves on putting energy on the ball. And if we do that, it's going to do a lot different. And we've always sort of said we can't judge a pitch until we've bowled on it as well. We said the same thing during the Kent fixture. We got sent in on a wicket that we thought was one of the bounciest wickets we've had at the Riverside, and it was, seaming around a bit. But I think the Kent bowlers didn't quite make the most of it. And then, we said then, well, let's have a look when we do it, if we make sure we get in the right areas. And, the bowling conditions were perfect for us. And that was the same down in Bristol. We put energy on the ball, and it started to deviate, and it was swinging. And again, credit to Graham Onions. We've spoken a lot about the over-reliance on the wobble seam delivery instead of swinging it. And when you see Matthew Potts starting to swing the ball again, is probably a reflection of where he's at and, how the attack is then. And then, Ben Rain, I said this after the last game, how long has it been since he hasn't opened the bowling? And that just it adds another layer to our game where, he comes on first change and doesn't let the pressure, ease up at all. And those four fast bowlers in the first innings were absolutely brilliant.
And I guess you talk about the fast bowlers. Casey kind of batting with the ball, but 6 catches for him in the slips in these 2 games. Campbell, what an addition is he been to this Durham 11?
Yeah, his fingers are a bit battered and bruised at the minute, but it's we knew what we were going to get when we signed him. That's why we went so hard in trying to get him. I'm trying to get the sun out of your eyes there. Sorry. Bats, bowls, and fields, he's an absolute gun. So again, it's early days for him in his career at Durham, and I guess the reason he left Somerset was he wasn't getting regular opportunities in their 4-day cricket, and that's what we're going to give him. And if he continues to develop, for me, he's a genuine all-rounder. The end goal will him probably be batting higher. He wants to bat it, in the top 6 to really nail down that all-rounder spot. And, as he keeps developing, I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
And he complements our attack perfectly, doesn't he, Campbell?
Yeah, absolutely. The balance of our team, I think, last year was shown that, Buster later was injured, Bryden Cass, gets picked for England. They were the sort of guys that were batting at 7 and, they can make 100 for you, but then they can obviously bowl really important overs. And we probably have lacked that with their injuries and it kind of cripples your team almost that, you don't quite have the balance right. We're very pleased. Like I said, we knew what we were looking for, and we knew that guy, hence why we, offered him some T20 cricket last year to sort of get him inside the doors. And I've got to say, once we have someone in our, environment, they're going to like what they see. And, was the difference between him coming to us full time or not.
Let's touch on Callum Parkinson. 3 wickets in that second innings, wasn't needed in the first, but the big opening stand broken to get rid of Cameron Bancroft. You spoke, Campbell, about how much you love a spinner. To see Parky kind of taking wickets down at Gloucester again must be a delight from your point of view.
Well, I've just probably ranted on there for about even 20 minutes about our batting and bowling, but I'll be honest. The thing that got me the most excited about the whole game was, introducing Parky in, I think, the 27th over. They're none for 100, and he changed the course of the game, and that's what we expect from Callum, and that's what we need from Callum, because people are going to talk about our pace attack, but they work better when they are fresh and up and running, and steaming in from one end, and we've got a constant pressure from the other. And I was just so pleased. If people could see the amount of work that Callum has put in the off season, not just about his bowling, because that's obviously his number one trait, but his fielding, his batting. He was, hours upon hours of continuing to work hard on his game, and they're the reasons why he became our number one spinner again. We're not going to beat around the bush. Last year was a disappointing year for him, and we've put it back on him that we expect you to be our number one guy, and are you ready for it, and can you do that? And the answer was very categorically a big yes from him yesterday.
A week off now, does that come at a good time, a bad time, kind of on the back of 2 strong performances?
Yeah, well, it's always interesting to buy. Like, I think last year we played lots of games in a row, and didn't get a break, which caused us, all sorts of issues with our bowling stocks. But I reckon it comes at a good time, to play 2 games pretty well. Gives us a week just to take a breath, and those bowlers, it may mean that we can, they can all go again. At some point we're going to have to start giving them a break and giving them opportunities. It's hence why I'm on a bus now, and we're actually going via Worcester to drop James Minto at the second team, because we need him bowling, and making sure that him and Colin Ackerman, for instance, will be playing in that seconds game. We've got a host of young fast bowlers in that we're really excited about. And the thing for me is, I mentioned this last week. I was watching at lunch on the last day, and suddenly you had Archie Bailey, Luke Robinson, James Minto, Sam Connors, all bowling full pace, going really well. And they were the reserves, and you could see, other coaches from other teams going, geez, wouldn't mind to borrow a couple of those blokes. But, we have to get cricket into their systems now. And, hopefully they had a good win in the seconds against Durham Uni last week, and hopefully they can back it up this week. But, yeah, it's not going to be long before we start calling on some of those players.
And just finally, Campbell, you obviously a bye week. What's the plan of action for the next few days? Do the guys get a bit of time to chill and relax, or is it straight back to back end of the week?
Yeah. We'll come in on Wednesday, where we will do our normal review, and make sure that everyone's basically a check-in to make sure everyone's going well. And I think what we want to make sure we do this year is, every game we don't just then move on to the next. It's over. It's really important that we review the process that we did, and the good, the bad, and the ugly of what went on. But again, it's not going to be very long. We'd like people just to chill, and like I say, it's a bit of a check-in. Then they will have some time off. I think it's really important that they don't get much time off during the season. So, just to get them away from, place of work and give them a bit of chill time is really important. But then we'll be back in on Monday, getting prepared for Lancashire, which is, I don't think I need to sort of go into the depths of how important that game is. Lancashire are one of the, I guess, so-called big teams in Division 2, and we want to make sure that when they come to the Riverside, they know that they are up against the big fish in this sort of pond.
Just to end off, Campbell, obviously we've seen round 2's underway now. Kind of what are your thoughts overall? And I know it's early stages, but in the division, obviously Worcester beat Middlesex yesterday. Middlesex beat Gloucester first game of the season. I guess it's kind of all everyone's beating everyone, aren't
Of course, Division Two is a bloody tough league. You look at the Derbyshires who have continued to add to their squad. They've added Mohammed Abbas and the England spinner show of Bashir um, to a squad that was already pretty strong. So they're going well. My old mate Darren Lehman down at Northants is pretty happy with his squad, and they're playing some really solid cricket. So yeah, there's plenty of teams that can just come up and beat you, or put up massive performances. So I know I'm sounding a bit like a coach here, but there are no easy games, and they compare it to the championship in football. To get out of the league, you have to play really, really well, and hopefully we've started to set the tone on how we're going to play, and other clubs are now looking at us, going, has the sleeping giant woken back up? And I'm hoping that the big answer to that is a emphatic yes.
Perfect. That's great, Campbell. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you
No worries,
in a few
Sammy
days.
lad.
Perfect. Catch you
Okay,
soon.
mate.
Enjoy the journey. See you
Cheers,
later.
bud.
Bye bye.
Bye.